Hi guys, it's Yano Curry from the photo assignment. We've been gone for a while, and the reasons are simply there's so much going on in the world. I had to be a part of it, and so I had to take a step back, really see how I can and see how I can play my part. What I've been doing is really reassessing what I've been doing, thinking about the photo assignment a lot, how to move forward, and also most importantly, I've been creating art. I've been in the studio a lot, and I've just been creating, I've been experimenting, and I cannot wait to show you guys that. But moving forward, some minor updates. Moving forward, I'm going to take the photo assignment from a weekly project to a monthly project, and simply because that will give you enough time to really develop a specific shoot, a specific concept. It takes a while for you to think about a concept, to really figure it out in your head, to meditate on it. And then you have the setting up of the shoot, finding the right models or finding the right scene, and then post editing, which I take a long time on. So moving forward, it will be every month. I'll be doing one of these assignments. As always, I'll be giving out a print. I'll be sending a print to the winners, as well as I'll be taking on a judge every once in a while. So those are the updates from my end. If you've been waiting for a long time, my apologies. I hope you can understand that it's a it's a new world that we're entering in, and we all have to adapt, and that's what I was doing. So without further ado, let's get into it. So guys, here we are. We have 21 beautiful submissions, and let's immediately dive into the first one. So guys, for the first submission, the person that submitted this was John Pablo, a good friend of mine, and a fellow artist and curator. So for this first image, at first glance, I'm sensing adventure, I'm sensing tourism, exotic location. And what really strikes me at first from this image is the composition and the geometry that was captured. I love the simplicity. I'm not sure if this image was cropped, but if it was, this is the perfect crop, or if it was taken this way, even better. And beyond that, describing the image, I think the subject describes the scene we cannot see. This image already says a lot, or it gives a lot of hints. But the thing I like the most about this image is that the subject is telling us about the surroundings, and she's telling us that it's exotic, that it's a far off location, and that it's kind of an adventure the way she is looking. I love how the clouds are totally filling up on the background. It gives me a sense of grandness, and it's all I would think it was taken from a low angle. Another thing that this image tells me as well is that the boat is it looks like a extremely big boat, not a huge ship, but a big boat, maybe a fisherman's boat, by seeing the ropes. And another thing I also appreciate is kind of the nose of the boat, kind of going up, and then you see the light blue, the baby blue lines under her feet. It gives me a sense of like a cross, and a cross is a very powerful symbol, and
Unknown caller.
and seeing her feet, kind of also going down, kind of finishes that cross. So compositionally, this is a really beautiful image, that really captures a sense of adventure. And another thing as well too, this image makes me think of Life of Pi for some reason. If you guys haven't seen that movie, one of the best movies ever shot. I think one of the most expensive movies as well. But you should definitely check out that movie, and you'll definitely get that this picture is is giving those vibes. So let's go to the next image. So for the next image, this was submitted by Emil. And at first glance, I really appreciate the composition, the position of the door, the black bar, the kind of red bricks in the background, even the colors of the two subjects' clothing. So this image also kind of makes me think or makes me ask questions about how it was shot. An option could be based on the shoelaces that he was jumping. But to me, he looks a little bit too comfortable to be jumping that way. Or, he might be like a professional athlete or something, but he looks a little bit too comfortable for me to kind of think that he was jumping. Another option could also have been you take the image with him standing on an object and then removing the subjects out of frame with the camera in the same position on a tripod, taking another shot, and then you just lay those two images over each other and get rid of the object that he was standing on. That's a little bit more work, but that's a way you can edit pictures and kind of is an easy way to get objects out of frame by having a clean shot, a clean background shot. So, I would think that they might have done that. Either way, it doesn't really matter, but it's always nice to kind of ponder about these things. Another thing I would suggest too, this might be a fun stock image. You can maybe shop around online. People might be willing to buy it. There's enough room for a logo of a brand. So I don't see why you couldn't, kind of make money on this image. I also see a watermark, which isn't bad. It doesn't really take away from the image. But before putting a watermark, always ask yourself, why are you doing that? I think, if it's a good enough reason, if people are kind of stealing your work, that's a valid point to put watermarks. A lot of artists, that I know that are pretty big artists, they're very careful with sending out the large image sizes. Something I do. If I need to send my image, for an interview, a website post, I make sure to send my a specific social media size that's just enough to get just enough sharpness out of it from the online platform. But I'm very careful with sending out my printing files. Those are the larger files that are ready to go for print. So, putting a watermark is never bad. Just make sure that it doesn't take away too much from the grander image. So be careful about that, but I'm sure Emil has a valid reason to put the watermark. So let's go to the next image. So we have a very interesting image. This image at first glance also gives me adventure vibes, exotic location. At first glance, beautiful composition, and I immediately think of long exposure. And the person that submitted it is Carl. And Carl said, believe it or not, this image is basically untouched, meaning extremely minimal editing, which I believe. I am skeptical though about the sky. The sky is just fucking perfect, and you have the flying star. So I'm very curious to know if the sky was edited in. I'm not 100% sure. And nothing immediately jumps out at me, stating that it was edited. So That doesn't really matter. This is the end product, and it's beautiful. You know, from the sky till the exposure on him, I see kind of a light shining a little bit on his face, which is perfect, not giving away too much detail, but just enough that you see that he's looking off in the distance. You see a little bit of his cheek, and kind of how the light is hitting his headdress. Location wise, I would think, you know, and I don't want to speculate, but, you know, based on his clothing, I would think somewhere in the east, you know, that, you know, also the landscape is telling me somewhere in the desert, maybe somewhere eastern, Middle Eastern, maybe, but it could also be, you know, Asia, maybe even, or Africa could be an option as well. But beautiful image. Another element that I really like is the huge shadow. Like he must be sitting on a humongous mountain because of the shadow. And I think that large shadow, which you really, I think you kind of have to know the environment to know the best time to shoot it. But that shadow is giving me perfect composition, contrast vibe. You know, where he's sitting, the darkness, then you have the bright red landscape, and then you have like the darker mountains rising up again, and then you have the blue sky. I mean, that sense of layering is just sending me. So I think this is a beautiful shot. I'm very curious, Carl, where you took it, how much editing you've done. You say it's minimal, but like, you know, maybe it's a little thing. I would really love to know that. But overall, this is a masterful image. You know, I think it would be great printed. If I was you, I would definitely check out some cool papers and maybe print it out. And, or if you want to take the more commercial route, this could work beautifully as a stock image. You know, I mean, shit, put an Apple logo in the corner and that's it. Put a Samsung logo in the corner, that's it. So so definitely check out those options. You know, sometimes we're sitting on a lot of old stuff maybe that, you know, we've never found a commercial purpose for. So definitely check that out. There's a lot of stock sites online that I've been looking at as well, where you can make some money. So check it out. But Carl, beautiful, beautiful image. So another beautiful image, and let me try something. Yes. So this is another stunning image. At first glance, this image really, it makes me work a lot. It makes the eyes work a lot because at first glance, you're like, what am I looking at? What's the right composition? You kind of, you know, you kind of see the image in your head, you know, flipped over like you would see it. But what Oscar, this was submitted by Oscar, what Oscar did is he took an already interesting image and made it even more interesting. And I love that. I love the accent of the person in mid-air. That's really the exclamation mark on the dot on this image, the cherry on top of the cake, that really makes this image for me. Again, I am seeing kind of 4 elements. I'm seeing 3 layers: water, rock, sky, and then you have person. That combination on its own, compositionally, is really, really fine detail to me, fine art almost in a way. I also love the progression of the people standing on the side. You know, you see really people leading up to the person that is jumping, which to me tells a story. It shows movement, and just the way, you know, the action shot almost that you took was just beautiful. The fact that you decided to make this black and white was a good choice for me, because it just all the elements really come together and form a greater whole. I don't think you would have gone the same thing with a non-black and white image. I love taking shots of water, not as art, but just as a satisfaction. Also videos of water, how water moves, and I love the way you capture the water, you know, and how the water kind of has those highlighted areas from, you know, from a noon type of sun. Beautiful work, Oscar. Let me see if I have something else. Um, this is definitely a silhouette type image, which is personally also, you know, one of my favorite styles is to, you know, to kind of work with outlines in a way. So beautiful, beautiful image, Oscar. And this image was taken in Hawaii. Of course it was. So let's go to the next one. So the next image was submitted by Sandra, and it was taken from an airplane. And, you know, at first glance, this image, you know, if you're looking at it from a distance, kind of looks like a painting almost, an abstract painting of maybe like a landscape or just simply an abstract image, simply because the colors work beautifully. In the past, I've done some similar type of shots because when you're in an airplane and the sun goes down, it's sunset, and you're kind of above the clouds, I mean, the things that you see are just insane. The light play with the clouds just gives you some of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen. Obviously, you need to be up there in an airplane. And I'm pretty sure drones can go that high up. But when you have the opportunity, it's always, you know, beautiful to see, beautiful to capture. For this particular image, I'm guessing it was taken on a phone. I would have wished to have seen, and I don't really care if an image is all too sharp. It depends on the whole package, but I would have just wished to, you know, this image to have been taken with a camera, simply because a camera could capture a little bit more detail for you to work with. You know, it might not be off the bat a perfect shot, but you have the data to then go and edit and make it a little bit sharper. You have less data when taking it with a phone. So that's just something I would have liked to see. But overall, what I like about this image is the light play, as well as giving me like a lava kind of rivery color, and also scenery, almost like a river of lava, river of light, which is really nice. But again, you know, next time you're up there, definitely have a camera handy. So let's go to the next one. So for the next one, we have an image submitted by Coco, who has submitted in the past. This image, at first glance, is definitely giving me European vibe. What I can see from the image too is that it was taken with, I think it was, it's a panoramic image, the way it was taken with, because the curves are just, you know, that's what it's telling me. An option as well too, that you can maybe play around with, is in Lightroom, and also in Photoshop has that feature as well, when you edit the RAWs, is that you can, there's an automatic feature that will, especially in Lightroom, there's an automatic feature that your panoramic shots, the shots where the image is a little bit distorted, just because you have a longer image, it sometimes cuts off corners and stuff. There is a feature in Lightroom that will correct that for you. You just plug in your type of camera, if sometimes the image itself has that data, but that will totally maybe it won't make the image perfect, but it will definitely help you to kind of straighten the image out, that it looks a little bit more kind of realistic, straightened out, and not so much distorted. So definitely check out that feature. But something that strikes me for this image is also the composition. I think all the images submitted this time had beautiful composition, really attention to detail when it comes to that. But what I like is kind of the organic flow of the image. You would think these are buildings, they might, especially older buildings, they might not have that, the dynamic feeling to it. It might be a little bit, kind of too straight. But I love the curvatures that your particular image captures, especially kind of this line guiding you, where you notice the British flag, which I think that line, you have to follow that line in a bit, or subconsciously you're following that line, and that makes you notice the British flag and how this building goes up again. So overall, great composition. Definitely check out the features on Lightroom. And yeah, not bad of an image. So this image was submitted by Manuela Montano, and it's a beautiful image. I really like the central focus, which is perfectly, if you can see this is the focus is kind of perfect on the subject, or kind of the main thing that really makes this image is the grandness, and kind of a sense of classical mural, which I really like. So props on where you got the camera to focus. This looks like an extremely wide angle lens, maybe a GoPro or a camera with a wide angle lens, which you really use to your advantage to capture that. I love the fact that you have the muralist in the image as well too, and the platform that he's standing on, the orange color, really cuts through the image well, and kind of accents the image in a way that I like. One thing that I would have done is to have maybe cropped the image just a bit more, and kind of gotten rid of the ground. And let me just show you. If you look at the image now, a little bit cropped, kind of gotten rid of the ground, and kind of gotten a little bit closer. It's a deeper focus on the mural, and it kind of shows a little bit better the grandness and the size and scale of the mural in comparison to it being a little bit further away. So I would definitely keep that in mind. As always, I think cropping, compositioning, but especially cropping and going deeper into certain elements, it might seem scary sometimes, or you might be hesitant, but definitely play around with it. I mean, you can totally change a whole image by just going up just a little bit closer. But overall, I want to know where this mural is. I'm pretty sure it's in Miami. But I love the grandness of this image. I also love the colors, the green, then the orange cuts right to it, and then you have the little accent of the subject in comparison to the extremely grander mural. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful shot, and again, let me know where this mural is. So for this next image, it was submitted by Gino, and at first glance, it's just like a beautiful shot, well captured, well lit. definitely tells you a lot about where this image was taken. It looks like a temple, what do you call it, a pogado? Um, but it's just a beautiful temple of maybe Eastern, somewhere in the East. Um, One thing that really stands out that I really appreciate is the lighting, the coloring. I'm pretty sure it was maybe tweaked post, but maybe it was just the lighting, how the image was captured. But I love the oranges. I love the red, and that also fits with Eastern culture. So um, I'm not sure if it was the sun or if there was light on those objects. Something I'm also thinking of is, if how would this image look without people in it? Obviously, if you're out and about, especially in places with a lot of tourists, it's not always easy to kind of take an image, capture an image of something iconic without people in it. But I would have loved to have seen this image without people as well too. But overall, great image. I love how he captured the pond and how the pond kind of reflects, especially the circle in the center. This is a very centered shot with the circle being in the center, which isn't the case usually in photography, but in this case, it definitely works for me, especially since you have that beautiful circle in the center. The sky kind of works well too. It kind of cuts through everything and kind of gives you a nice horizon with a high contrast between the sky and the center. And then you have the pond. I also see this as maybe a stock image, an image that maybe defines the place that you were. But it could definitely work as a stock image as well too. Pretty sure the people that run that place or manage that place could find a good use and pay for this image. Yeah, that's it. Beautiful shot, Gino. So for the next image, we have a submission by Juan. And I've seen Juan's images before, and what I've seen and what I really appreciate is the consistency of use of lighting and colors. So props to you, Juan. Having only seen your images, I can already see that it's your particular style, which I really appreciate. I love that there are 3 layers in this image, and I'm talking about the darker area, then you have the bright orange, yellow, and then you have kind of the grayer ground. And that combination really works well for me. Also, the position of your subject for me is a little bit too easy. But then again, I could also make the argument that based on your style, it's more performative a little bit, kind of more theater. And in that case, if that was your intention, it kind of works for me in a more performative theater setting. But also consider, always take multiple shots of, and a good model will give you the perfect pose. Obviously, you kind of need a guide and direct the model a little bit, but a good model will definitely make a big difference in terms of what she can offer you, if you ask. But overall, the lighting on your subject is beautiful. Something that immediately stands out for me are the highlights on her arm and kind of giving you like a zigzag kind of feeling. The hat is a great addition to the set, to the clothing that she's wearing, to the design. And the shadow she casts in the background also works for me. Something that I would have done with this image, or I would have played with, is to either take a step back, kind of zoom out a little bit more and show more of the environment just a little bit, and kind of kind of minimize the subject, which wouldn't take away from it, but would make it just look a little bit more grander. Or you could do the opposite and get a little bit closer. And in that case, I would have put the subject not centered, which is also a little bit hard for me to accept, but put the subject a little bit more off to the side, kind of cut this area and put your subject more in the bottom right corner. But overall, great image. Definitely keep on pursuing your particular style, your use of colors. I'm sure, at least with me, the colors have evolved. I've expanded some more colors. Definitely look into that. But, you definitely have something personal going based on your style. And that makes me very proud. So let's go to the next one. So for the next image, we have a submission by Mahabir Siddharth. And, looking at eyes from a very close distance is always, like a magnificent sight to see. But looking at the eyes, like the eyes are like a totally different universe in themselves. They always look like a little micro cosmos that lives within your eyes. And as visual creatives, our eyes hold a very important position in, as one of our tools. So, a beautiful micro shot of an eye, and the more specifically, so the iris, kind of getting, like, looking at the screen closer, it starts really looking even more like a little universe, and it's really trippy in a way, in a good way. Something that I like as well too is that Mahabir, you weren't scared to overexpose the image. As you can see, the kind of the half moon on the side, and how the light is just taking over and it's just overexposed. I like the fact that instead of like a standard image where you got to be careful with overexposure and such, you weren't afraid to use that overexposure to your advantage. And in this case, it works for me. It also casts harder shadows. And I love how, you see the light dancing kind of on the face. You see it on the pores. The pores even give off little shadows, and the eyelashes as well has just little highlights and little lines of light dancing on them. So beautiful image overall. Let me see if I have anything else. Another thing I would say about the eyes is that, they are truly the gateway to the soul. And, when it comes to a look, or, when capturing somebody's eyes, there's always a secret or a specific mood behind it. So, beautiful capture of the eyes, extremely, kind of an intense, it's a very intense kind of cosmosy image that you've captured. So, great image. So the next image was submitted by Sadiq Juman. Sadiq has submitted before, and something that always stands out, when Sadiq submits his images is Sadiq always makes use of distortion, distortions in a natural way, which I really appreciate. It's kind of becoming, or it's telling me that that's kind of the style you're going for, which you should definitely keep on exploring. Something I would advise for this image to even go further beyond, to go deeper into the abstraction of the image, is I would crop. I always refrain back to cropping, but because I do believe cropping, or compositioning, twisting it a little bit, gives you a better sense of focus and makes your images a little bit more abstract, at least if that's what you're going for, which, this isn't highly abstract, more fine art geared image. That would highlight that a little bit better. So how I would crop this image is I would crop into the palm of the hand just a little bit more to give you a closer visual, kind of your subject, and kind of show you more detail on the object that you've chosen. Another tip I would give is, on a deeper level, is to put the timers of the hands of the clock, the timers of the clock, to put it more on a symbolic, put it more on a symbolic time, like high noon or 6 p.m. That would, or make it your own. Put a story behind it, is what I'm trying to say. Because that would take it a little bit deeper, a little bit beyond just the regular time. Time is very symbolic in my eyes, and I feel that there's an opportunity there that I would like you to explore. Coming back again to using the distortion technique with the ripples, the water bubbles, that really works for me. They're even casting some shadowy dots on your fingers, which also works for me. But yeah, not a bad image. So the next image was submitted by Jason Wilbrook, and again, a great example again of a silhouetted shot. You took this image at, I would say you took it at the best time possible, to get that silhouette out of it, but to also get kind of the sun saying goodbye. As photographers, we always love that golden hour, and you captured it exactly at an hour, I would guess, right before the sun disappeared, or you were shooting till right before the sun disappeared. So props for that. I love how you also secluded that area of the bright oranges. You kind of secluded it in that tight little space where it kind of starts because of the bars, it starts defragmenting into singular little boxes of orange light, and then at the top you have all blue. I think you had a very good eye to do that. And again, I refrain back to cropping simply because I would have cropped out the left side just a little bit more. It's a little bit too many bars for me. But if you would have just cropped this just a little bit deeper, it would have given you a little bit more powerful image. And let me just show you. So look at the image now. I think you can maybe crop it just a little bit more, maybe. But it gives you a kind of a tighter, more compressed image that to me makes better use of your subjects, and especially the colors. They always say less is more, and in this case, I would have done this, and maybe gone it even a little bit closer. So just consider that, but I love the way you compartmentalize the lights of the sun. You use your surroundings, and you created a beautiful silhouette that kind of opens the door up to a story. So good job. So for the next image, we have a submission by Sirman Junkie. So at first glance, I'm getting a lot of feelings, I'm getting a lot of emotions, and those emotions are kind of telling me about keeping yourself composed, going through the struggle, but keeping yourself composed. And I think this is a good representation of right now. I mean, you know, I've been going through it, the whole coronavirus, the whole you know, Black Lives Matters movement. You know, shit, there's so much more that's happened this year that has truly turned, you know, turned the world on its side. Um, you know, so, you know, I think you funneled that feeling. You funneled it in a very good way, in a very good composed image, into one composed image. So props to that. It's also giving me performative vibes, performance vibes actually. You know, the subject is clearly, you know, under his eyes are a little bit wet. You know, from what he's wearing, what's around him. It's definitely extremely performative image, like one of them that we saw before, I think from Juan. I like your way of thinking, your way of telling a story, and not being afraid to tell the story through, you know, a somewhat contemporary way. One thing I did notice, and you know, I've gone through this as well. You have two dots here, one on the left side and one on the right side. I believe that's because your lens is a little bit dirty. You know, you can either bring it to a specialist to have your lens cleaned, or you can buy a lens cleaning kit and do it yourself. Just the other day, I was looking at some YouTube videos that explain how to clean your lens in the best way. But I recently went through something like this, so I would definitely advise to get those two particles out of there. I mean, you can always get rid of it post, um, but it's always better to clean your lenses or your camera. Um, Let me see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I love your performative approach, Sirman. So for the next image, we have a submission by Jonathan. And I must say, this is a beautiful image. I believe it was taken with a film camera, 35 millimeter, probably. I'm not sure of the negative film, but definitely black and white. But just a beautiful shot. At first glance, the moods this image is kind of retrieving out of me is, you know, East European, Bosnia vibes. It's also giving me somewhat of a 60s, 70s vibes through, I believe, the sweater she's wearing with the boots. You know, I love how the graffiti on the left side it looks like it's coming out of her, like it's an extension of her soul flowing out of her, which is beautiful. I love how the sun highlights her hair, kind of like a bushy ponytail, which I really appreciate. You can see in this image that the person that took it has a great understanding of lighting, of composition, and also of patience. You know, I'm sure that you had to wait for the perfect time for the light to exactly shine there. You can even see it here. The light almost hits the pillar, you know, and the composition of your subject standing in one of the boxes of the window shadows. You know, it just shows a great amount of understanding of lighting and composition, and you know, and just creating a shot that's very simplistic. Had to be black and white, but that's simplistic in a way where compositionally it's just so good that, you know, there's nothing I would change. Let me see whatever I have. I have something a little bit with crosses, and you know, I see a cross here again. Crosses are symbolic. They're, you know, they're somewhat hard to find in nature. So I like, you know, that this is forming somewhat of a cross, and she's a part of that. Um, and yeah, overall, great shot, Jonathan. So for the next image, we have a submission by Rafael Juman. And again, I'm starting to see a trend with a lot of the people that have constantly submitted. And again, Rafael, I'm seeing definitely a trend in your style. You know, like that HDR look, very moody images, and especially high contrast and high sharpness. One thing I would advise, and I've seen you decrease it more and more, but it's to not make it so sharp that it starts going, you know, it starts overpowering the image. You know, just a little bit less sharpness, and I think you would get, you know, a well balance between sharpness and softness. You would find that sweet spot. So try considering that for your future work. The images is this image is really nice. You know, with the water bubbles, kind of gets in, you know, a little bit in a kind of a micro universe, a little bit. But overall, great shot. Great shot and good consistency with your particular style. So for the next image, we have a submission by Marhrit Juman. Pretty similar to the before image. The sharpness has been increased a lot, you know, which works a little bit better in this one for me, simply because it's a little bit more minimalistic. But again, it's highly sharpened, which you can see in post. But I love the play on, you know, as we all know, glass does very nice things when it comes to lighting, and you know, you neatly put the sun, the setting sun, in the bottom of the glass, which really works. Also gives you, if you zoom in closer, it definitely gives you also like a cosmos type feeling. Also, the red at the bottom of the glass is very interesting. Also, you know, from the sun, an effect from the sun as well. But I like the story you're telling with the sun kind of sitting in the glass. Again, I love the sweat around the glass. You know, it really gives it a certain type of character to it. And I love the comparison between the sweat of the glass and also the almost night sky. So that works very well. I love what's happening at the bottom here, and how, you know, the glass is slowly fading into darkness. There's something about that I really appreciate. But yeah, some advice, a little bit less sharpening, especially in post. But overall, a great effort on your part. So for this next image, we have a submission by Siddharth. And at first glance, you know, I would think, you know, the competition was to submit your best picture ever. You know, and looking at this particular image, I don't really get that from the image. You know, I love the layers, like the background, the grass, and the subject in the center with the bat. You know, but if the horizon is going to be a little bit slanted, I think there should be a reason for that. You know, so there's a little bit less effort put into this image, and I cannot find anything else that, you know, that really tells me otherwise. So, I would just suggest that, as your best picture ever, I think, there's a lot more that could have been done. You have a cool bat, you have grass, you have a beautiful sky. I just think that's a little bit lacking as the best picture ever. So yeah, definitely keep it up. And try to experiment more with the bat. A bat is a pretty symbolic object, I guess. Just experiment a little bit more. So for the next image, we have a submission by Alka. And Alka submitted this post-apocalyptic image, how I see it. But this image, very, very crispy image, has a good sharpness to it, lots and lots of detail. And I love the contrast between the layers. You have the plants, and then you have the road, and then as an accent, you have the broken down bike in the center. I love that contrast play. It also kind of gives me a sense of surface and then underground in a way, almost like a burial site. I would love to know where this image was taken, why is it an abandoned road? The super old bike that broke down like a couple of years back. It also gives me kind of apocalyptic vibes, like an earth without people living on it for years now. And something that struck me too, the details here at the bottom, you have some white objects that actually look like remains, like bones almost. But overall, great image, nice composition. I like that you centered your key accent in the center of the frame. And I love the fact that the road has a little bit more room than kind of the forest behind it. What some people tend to do is kind of, put them equal, but, always let one kind of balance the other one a little bit out more. But overall, great image. So for the next image, we have a beautiful submission by Jose Pons. And at first glance, what I'm kind of getting from this image is like it's a school of butterflies, all huddled up. And then as I progress, second glance, I start looking at the individual objects. And in a way, I'm seeing flamingos, or the head of a flamingo, kind of on all of them. And the colors are definitely exciting that more. It has like a pinkish, whitish, kind of a white pink, from white to pink color scheme, which definitely excites the imagination for flamingos. And then at third glance, kind of taking a step back, having seen it from close and taking a step back, you start seeing kind of a bigger figure, which again, looks in a way like it's giving me like just flamingo vibes. And as you look closer now, you start maybe realizing, it's a person bent over. So I think this is a great example of an abstract, more fine art photography work, where the photographer is experimenting in his own unique style, which I think might be lighting. I'm not sure, but he is creating an abstract figure from a particular technique, which I really appreciate. One thing I would maybe suggest is maybe to give the edges maybe a little bit more breathing room, a little bit more black, just so you can see the overall form of the subject. But I really appreciate how geometry kind of blends in with form, with more organic form, because I do believe it's a person. Um, but overall, great image. Great experiential photography. I haven't, you don't see this every day, and this is extremely interesting. So for the next image, we have a submission by MJ, MJE, I believe. And this is a great image as well. Some things let me start off with the things I like about this image. I like the movement of the image. It's kind of giving you like a zigzag motion in the direction of the lines that make you explore the entire image, which I appreciate. One thing I would have done is maybe to have cropped out the bridge and the boats a little bit. And why I'm saying that is because the bridge would have been perfect without the boats. But the boats are just throwing me off just a little bit. It would have been really nice to have a clean bridge without the boats. For movement, that would have worked better for me. I also saw, MJ, that you used some type of a filter. I'm not sure if that was done post or if it was part of the image. I would like to know what the reason is for that filter, but I would have maybe played with black and white as well. I think you could have captured a lot of beautiful contrast with the sky, then the darker areas with the earth and the little hill, and then brighter areas with the water again. I'm not sure if this was a possibility, but also having maybe placed your subject right here, that you had kind of a better contrast, that your subject maybe popped a little bit out better to have that human element in there, would have maybe worked in your best interest as well too. And if you can't really go and ask your subject, always try moving a little bit to the side to make sure that your subject is in the frame that you want it to be. But overall, not a bad image at all. I love this exact moment. It's not always easy to find a good location, to get the perfect movement in your shot. But well executed. Let me know what you did with the, if there was a filter added. But yeah, and play around with black and white. So for the next image, we have a submission by Sarah, which is a very well composition of an image and a great use of lighting. At first glance, you might think it's okay. The light is maybe a little bit overexposing the subject, but it starts working more and more for me as I look at the image and kind of decipher it. I'm guessing the light on the subject is from a car. What I'm guessing, and I really like the way the image is composed and the subject and the relationship to the Milky Way right here. It's kind of a perfect angle. It really takes insight to kind of go for an image like that, and to kind of before you're actually taking the image, knowing where you need to stand. I'm not sure if this was taken by anyone else or if it was a self-timer. I'm guessing you had a friend that helped you take it. But I'm seeing great insights into this picture. Again, I love the horizon and the three layers, from the grass to the little mountain, which is a different color, a darker color, to literally the heavens. I love that composition. It's well balanced, extremely well balanced. And another thing I like is that the light starts dimming from your light source, and then the light from the night sky takes over and lights up the rest. So you know, a lot of insight, great composition. This was probably you were making a road trip, or you were making a trip to maybe the desert somewhere. But it's a extremely well put image. I'm not sure if you have more of them. I would like to see, but also one without a subject maybe could be a really um, could be a really good image as well. But yeah, great execution. So, guys, these are my three final selections. And thank you for all the submissions. But I believe these three images are the ones that, that brought me to a specific type of feeling, a specific type of mood in their own individual ways. And they really stuck out to me in terms of composition, in terms of telling a story, and in terms of having their own unique style to them. So I'm gonna start with the third place, then with the second place, then go to first place. So for third place, guys, we have Oscar. And Oscar's image is the silhouette image. And the reason why I really appreciate Oscar's image is because it brings me back to a youthful time. Being around with friends, being around water, it just brings up so much, good, youthful memories. And another thing that kind of, like was the deal for me is that Oscar was not afraid to just flip the image around. I really appreciate creatives that that go against the status quo. Give me something new, give me something different, at least try it. And I can definitely see that Oscar took the effort to play around with composition and just flipping it over, and it works even better. So Oscar, congrats on third place. Amazing shot. You really brought me back to my youth. And another thing I also want to mention, it's not easy capturing an action shot and it being sharp. So, so job well done, Oscar. So for second place, and you'll know who first place is as well. For second place, we have Carl. And Carl is this image. So what I really appreciate about this image is that Carl was able to capture an image that captures culture, but culture's relationship to nature and to the heavens. We all of us come from different cultures, different backgrounds, different surroundings, and that's always been a beautiful thing for me. I come from a country which is considered one of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world. So I've had the privilege to have grown up with people that have totally different cultures or religions than my own, and it's a beautiful thing. You can learn a lot, in photography as well. It's always beautiful to capture certain elements that tell a cultural story, now more than ever. So beautiful image, not only showing a particular part of the world, and please let me know where this image was taken, but also considering the surroundings and kind of directing the surroundings. I mean, that the shadow of the mountain that this person is sitting on, to the mountains in the background that are rising, to the night sky, which I really want to know if it's real or not, because it's just perfect. it's a well-composed image, and it also shows maturity on a cultural level and on a level of composition. So, congrats, Carl. So that brings us to first place, which is my friend Jonathan, who I believe was also in the top 3 in the previous episode. But this image just shows the ability that Jonathan has and the understanding of lighting and of, through one image, kind of giving us a story. This image just has some type of weight to it, where it brings me back to a particular era and time. And I believe Jonathan is a filmmaker, and I can just, from this image, I can get that sense out of it, that he has a great understanding and patience when it comes to frame. So very well executed, from the graffiti that looks like it's rising out of the subject, to the light, to making sure the light is at the perfect place where you want it. I'm a silhouette kind of guy. I'm a highlights on the edges kind of guy, and you kind of put that into action on your subject. So, so congrats, Jonathan, for winning first place. I'll be sure to send your prints your way. I have some very cool paper that I think your image would be perfect on. But again, congrats to these the top 3 winners, but also everyone else. It's not really an easy time, at least not for everyone. And it's creating visual elements that give people pleasure, like myself. I must add some type of value to the world. So congrats to everyone for submitting their images. I've seen the progression in a lot of you. You guys have, it's really beautiful to see, your particular styles really evolving and growing. And I want to see more of that. So before I end, I just want to let you guys know a second time, the format of the photo assignment has changed just a little bit. Instead of giving you guys a week's time to submit images, I'm going to give you a month this time. This will give you enough time to really think, shoot, and do post-editing work on your images, which I'm sure will give a higher sense of quality to it. I'm trying to go over these reviews as fast as I can. I get carried away sometimes because of the beautiful submissions, but I will also try to make these shorter. Something down the road that I wanted to ask you guys too is I've been pondering, to expand this beyond photography. And one of the first things that I've been thinking of together with a friend of mine that can help me on that element is film. A lot of photographers, we capture still images, but we also capture moving images until, go beyond just one image, telling stories through film. So I would like to, for you guys to let me know if you would like to see also some assignments that give you film. Well, how else can I say it? For you guys to submit films. So if you guys think that's the right move, let me know. I'd love to know. I'd love to host it. So drop a comment. And let us know. Beyond that, I will be in contact with you guys through email. If you know a friend that is interested in these assignments, send them our Instagram page or send them to our website. And again, it's a crazy time out there. As I mentioned to some of you before, try to document, the current times we are living in. I think it's really up to us creatives to capture this time. I mean, we've all read textbooks um, about the Renaissance, right? Prior to the Renaissance, you had the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, and that was captured only through art that time. And I think it's a big responsibility for us to at least reflect how we are absorbing the times we live in for future generations, for future museums. So again, thank you everyone for participating. If you had to wait a little bit longer than usually, my apologies. I just had to figure out some stuff to make this even better. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, drop a like and let me know about film assignments. Yeah.